Hi, this video is about hemoglobin and the blood vessels. Thanks for watching. We're in Maintaining a Balance, Descriptor 2, covering hemoglobin, arteries, veins and capillaries. The learning intentions for this lesson are that you will explain why oxygen is needed by cells and carbon dioxide must be removed. You need to be able to explain how the features of hemoglobin assist it in carrying out its role. And you need to be able to describe the structure of arteries, veins and capillaries and relate their structure to their function. Just recapping the need for oxygen, it's about making energy in the cells via cell respiration. And the need to remove carbon dioxide is because carbon dioxide turns into an acid when it dissolves in the water in cells, which lowers the pH of cells, which affects enzyme functioning. So carbon dioxide has to be removed or cell function won't continue. So hemoglobin is an amazing protein that is found in the blood of vertebrates. It's carried by the red blood cells and it is very good at binding oxygen. Now, in order to understand the advantage of hemoglobin, you need to know its structure. So let's have a close look at that and understand it. You can see here we've got hemoglobin. It has 4 polypeptides, which are basically long chains of amino acids that can chain again to form a protein. In each of the polypeptides, it's what's called a heme group, H-A-E-M, and each of those heme groups binds a molecule of oxygen. So paying attention over here, it's made up of 4 polypeptide chains, each bonded to an iron-containing heme group. So why hemoglobin? Why do we need an advantage? Well, oxygen does not dissolve well in water. You can only get about 0.2 of a mil into 100 mils of water, which means the plasma of blood, which is most of what blood's made up of, can't hold much oxygen. So hemoglobin actually increases the oxygen carrying capacity of blood by 100 times. So we can get 20 mils of oxygen per 100 mils. How it does this can be broken down into 3 main advantages. The first, that it increases the oxygen carrying capacity of blood. So each molecule of hemoglobin binds 4 oxygen molecules, 1 to each of the 4 heme groups. The second advantage of hemoglobin is that its affinity to oxygen increases after the first oxygen molecule binds to it. So when the first molecule binds to it, the second, third and fourth all come faster. So that increases the efficiency of uptake, which has benefits especially when there's high need for oxygen, for example when you're running. So the third advantage of hemoglobin is something we call the Bohr effect. And that is that its capacity to release oxygen increases when carbon dioxide is present. Now that's very handy because that's basically what you need it to do. So just reminding yourselves that in the lungs, hemoglobin picks up 4 oxygen molecules and it becomes something called oxyhemoglobin. And that's how oxygen is carried in the blood. That's the form. When the oxyhemoglobin reaches cells where the pH is low, remembering that CO2 turns the pH of the cells to an acidic level because it produces hydrogen ions. So in cells where lots of cell respiration has happened, there's not much oxygen left, but there's lots of CO2 left, the oxyhemoglobin molecule releases its oxygen, and it may then pick up carbon dioxide as well, remembering that some carbon dioxide is transported in the blood by hemoglobin. So in the tissues, then you get oxyhemoglobin releasing its oxygen into the cells that need it. So on to blood vessels. The dot point says to compare the structure of arteries, capillaries and veins in relation to their function. So you need to know what is the difference between veins and arteries, what is a capillary, and what are their functions. The function of an artery is to carry blood at high pressure away from the heart, to the cells or to the lungs. Veins carry blood away from cells and lungs towards the heart, and a capillary allows for gas exchange into and out of cells. So we need to know some terms here for the structure, so you need to learn these. The lumen is the inside space of a tubular structure, so this space in there where the blood is travelling. The endothelium is a thin layer of cells lining the inside of the vessel, so that's the next layer of cells here. And the smooth muscle is thin layers of muscle tissues that contract without voluntary control, so they just contract without you thinking about it. And then there's elastic tissue which stretches and can snap back, has elastic recoil. And connective tissue anchors your vessels to your nearby organs. These things don't float around, they're generally connected to other pieces of your body internally by connective tissue. So let's look at arteries more closely. So they mostly transport oxygenated blood away from the heart, other than the pulmonary arteries. They branch to form arterioles that lead into capillary networks in the tissues, and they have thick muscular walls transporting blood under high pressure. How their structure is related to their function is really about those thick walls and the smooth muscle. So major arteries have a thick layer of smooth muscle in their walls for two reasons. One is there is very high pressure from the heart to the cells. So that helps them assist with the flow of blood. The other reason they have the smooth muscle is so that they can adjust the diameter of the lumen of the artery, so that when it's relaxed, it's called vasodilation, but when they contract, that's vasoconstriction, and we know that that happens in particular feedback loops in response to stimulus. The inner layer consists of a thin layer of endothelial cells, and the outer layer is composed of connective tissue which holds the artery in place. So, veins mostly transport deoxygenated blood from the tissues back to the heart. So they're often working against gravity. If you think about, most of your body is actually below your heart. So blood enters the veins from the capillary network, and they have thinner and less muscular and less elastic walls because they're transporting blood under low pressure. But they have this additional feature in them, structure in them, called the valves. And you can see it drawn here, represented here. And only veins have those, and that basically stops backflow of blood back down the leg when it's trying to come up towards the heart. So in these pictures here, you can see the vein here, and there's those valves there. But around them is these muscles that work with them and push them, contract them to push the blood up between the pieces between two valves. So valves close and prevent backflow of blood. The muscle contracts and pushes the blood forwards and upwards. So the detail of the structure of the veins is here. They have thinner walls than arteries, as the blood they receive is at a low pressure. Their walls have very few elastic fibres because no elastic recoil is required in response to high pressure. The smooth muscle layer is also much thinner. The lumen of the vein, though, is wider, and it allows easy flow of blood. Blood flow in the veins towards the heart is assisted by large muscles, which compress veins and act as a muscle pump, and the small pocket-like folds of the epithelium within the vein, which are called the valves. And those valves act like one-way doors and close to prevent backflow of blood. On to capillaries. Capillaries are where the blood vessels come in contact with the cells that they are trying to deliver nutrients and gases to and remove wastes from. So they are extremely thin, microscopic vessels. They are 1 red blood cell wide, and they bring the blood in close contact with the tissues for the exchange of gases and chemicals. They consist of a single layer of endothelium, which is a continuation of the endothelium lining the lumen of arteries. So it's sort of one piece, that endothelium, and they receive blood under high pressure from the arteries. You can see here a diagram of capillaries. You can see a single layer of epithelium here. You can see that there's only enough space there really for 1 blood cell, and it's indicating here that carbon dioxide and waste are coming into the capillary and oxygen and nutrients are coming out. This is a coloured electron micrograph of a real capillary, just to give you context of what the real versus diagrams looks like. It's a cool picture. So to link the structure of the capillary to its function, the thin walls allow efficient diffusion. So everything has to diffuse out of the capillary into cells and from the cells into the capillary. Diffusion is a fairly slow, passive process, and the structure of the capillary allows a slowing down of the flow of blood, so that maximizes the exchange of material. Capillaries form an expansive network, so you've got a huge surface area which minimizes the distance between cells and the blood supply. So the fact that they're very small and thin-walled and organized in an expansive network are all the structures that are related to their functions. Here's a useful diagram for comparing the structure of the artery, the vein, and the capillary. Please note they're not drawn to scale there. And you can see the differences here quite clearly. Note the differences in the lumen. So the lumen in the vein is bigger than in the artery. Note the differences in the smooth muscle. And just in general, that the size of the artery is quite a bit thicker. And then you've got your very small single cell layer of endothelium on the capillaries. So to summarize, you might like to complete this table into your books using the slides in this video. So you need to describe the structure, draw a diagram, and link that structure to its function. Thank you for watching.